everybody, Candy here. Hey y'all. How is everybody doing? I am Pandy of Pandy's Hair Candy and More. If this is your first time stopping by the live, welcome. If we are already chat family, welcome back, y'all. So, tonight I am just coming on to give my weekly recap on Queen Sugar, Season 5, Episode 6. Tonight's episode was titled May 27th, 2020. Excuse me, y'all. Let me drink some water. Of course, it is dry in here. I got this fan going. I probably should turn it off. But yeah. I probably really should do these as an upload, which is what I usually do for my reviews. But here lately, I've been just doing them as a live right afterwards. After the episode airs, it just seems a little bit easier for me to get the content out. So, again, thank you all so much for stopping by. If you're catching the replay, thank you so much for clicking on the video and continuing to rock with your girl. Once again, I am Pandy of Pandy's Hair Candy and More. Y'all know for the most part, this is a hair channel. However, the name is Pandy's Hair Candy and More. So, of course, it's always and more. I do TV show reviews, product reviews, wig reviews, social commentary, just a whole host of content over here. Excuse me. I do a lot of educational videos as well. I'm very big on history, in particularly my Black history. So anything that I find that is informative that we can learn and grow from to share, I usually do so here on the channel. So thank you guys again for coming in. Also, if you did not remember to thumbs up the video on your way in, please don't forget to blow dry on my like button for me, as it greatly helps with my analytics, okay? Thank you in advance. So, give me just a moment and we will be starting momentarily, guys. Hey everybody, Candy here. All right, y'all, I'm back. I had to get some water. So thank you guys again for being here. Without further ado, I'm not going to hold you any longer than necessary. Let's go ahead and jump right into tonight's episode. Again, we're talking Queen Sugar. We are in season 5, episode 6. It is titled May 27th, 2020. So, in last week's episode, we basically saw that Ralph Angel and Darla got married. Remember, Ralph Angel met the older gentleman in the home that he took the new job at, and he decided that based on what he observed with the older guy and his wife, and they're being separated because of the pandemic, he needed to move and, take things to the next level with Darla, which is what he did. So they got married. Of course, Hollywood gave a very moving speech at the end of that episode, and everything was beautiful. It was grand. Everybody was dancing, having a good time. It was beautiful. And jumping forward to tonight's episode, this episode basically began with everybody's phone kind of going off. It's like everybody got a text or some type of notification. And it was like, oh my God, what didn't happen? I immediately thought, oh my God, something happened to Mr. Prosper. But what had happened was, remember, we're in season 5, and season 5 was actually shot during the time that the pandemic was actually just jumping off for us in real life a year ago. So they're kind of chronologically, or they're chronicling these episodes basically after the chain of events that happened with the pandemic. It's like they're trying to show in real time what we're currently experiencing and what we have experienced over the past year. So they get this text, everybody flips their news on, and they start showing that they're watching the clip from Derek Chauvin, the officer, and George Floyd, and the scene that took the world by surprise about this time last year. So everyone in St. Joe is reacting to seeing George Floyd dying, with the officer kneeling on his neck. Now, everybody, of course, is moved by this incident, but it particularly affected Micah, which is Charley's son, a bit more than everyone else, because if you are an avid fan of the show, you know that Micah had a previous run-in with the law there in St. Joe, and they kind of, it was a little bit it was a whole lot of racial undertones to it, and he was mistreated a bit. He had a gun pulled on him, and he was emasculated. In fact, he even urinated on himself during that episode. So he began to flash back to that incident. They next show Auntie Vi and Mr. Prosper. They're over at the diner, just kind of discussing. No, matter of fact, they were at her house. And she was already up kind of doing things in the kitchen. And Mr. Prosper came out and sat down at the table with the paper, because remember, they've invited Mr. Prosper to stay there during this time because he was going kind of stir crazy sitting up in his house alone. And plus, he was there with Auntie Vi while Hollywood went to go bury his mother. and handle that situation. So he joins her in the kitchen and she's kind of looking at the TV and she's like, kind of like most of us, like, oh my God, another black person dead at the hands of the police. Like, when is this going to stop? I think we've all, at some point in the past year, experienced that, sadly, on more than one occasion. So she's sitting there glancing at it. Mr. Prosper is not really paying it too much mind because he's a man of a particular age. He has seen this time and time again. And sadly, he's kind of numb and desensitized to it, I believe. So he's not as drawn in as everyone else. But they're discussing it. They're discussing the situation a little bit more rationally than everybody else. Of course, like I said, Micah was a bit distraught. Charley was, kind of tearful because, of course, what her son experienced. And then they next take us to the next scene where we see Nova. And like I always say, Nova's a bit eccentric, but she's also considered the woke sister on the show, right? So she's in there meditating, she's praying. But remember, she just started her business. I forget what it's called. I would have to go back through my notes. But it's like a magazine, it's like a social agency. She's also doing some podcasting with it. So she goes live, like she's got the ring light and everything sitting on her as she's sitting there meditating and praying. And as she goes live, she just starts to call out all the names of the many black men and women who have died at the hands of police. I mean, like she calls out Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Walter L. Scott. She just starts going through the names of all these victims that we have literally seen in our real life outside of TV, across the news, all these headlines. And at the end of her calling out all these names, a lot of them I was familiar with, a few I was not. She breaks down. I think it was like something about the process. She breaks down. She starts weeping, but it was almost like a cleansing, like a release type of situation. I don't know. It was a deep little scene. Now, next, they take us to, how they have to bring us in on all the characters, right? So we next flash to Ralph Angel and Darla. Now, again, they got married. I'm supposed to be showing y'all these slides I put in here. Since I saved them, I keep forgetting, just to kind of give y'all a visual of who I'm talking about. So Darla and Ralph Angel have gotten married in last week's episode. He proposed, right? Now, interestingly, they're the only ones who are not really triggered or even discussing the situation. They're all kind of checking out the news. Now, matter of fact, I jumped ahead. After we see Mr. Prosper and Auntie Vi kind of talking about the situation, Auntie Vi's like, oh my God, this is too much, another black man dead. Hollywood is sitting in the living room kind of watching it on the couch, and he's not looking like himself. He's kind of getting bent out of shape and enraged almost. As he's watching the situation, he's just like, oh my God, they're on that man's neck. He's kneeling on that man's neck. So again, Ralph Angel and Darla, they're enjoying the newlywed life. They're like on their mini honeymoon. They haven't seen the news. They don't even know what's going on. We go back to Nova's, and Nova's kind of questioning Calvin. She's kind of lashing out at him almost. Because again, we have to take into consideration Nova and Calvin, they're an interracial couple, right? So the whole George Floyd thing has taken place. And she's kind of lashing out at him, like, she's asking him whether he feels ashamed about what just happened on worldwide news, and how does he feel? She almost has like a mini meltdown because she doesn't like his responses. So she kind of shuts herself off away from them, him and his daughter, Courtney. Remember, Courtney came to stay with them. Next, we go back to Charley's, and Micah is really getting heavily emotionally involved. He's just feeding himself all the negativity from the news. You know, again, he's triggered and I think more emotionally affected because of his own situation at the hands of law enforcement. Now, I think we need to take into consideration that he's a young man, he's college aged, he's a black kid, they're in NOLA, and he's had a negative experience with the police. So he's been on this like militant, I want to fight the powers that be kick. And he's really getting involved, right? He's like feeding himself this stuff. He's on the phone, he's got his AirPods in, and he's talking on the phone to one of his buddies. And he's sitting there watching them, the protests all over America. They're like burning down businesses, they're rioting everywhere, they're protests everywhere. And he's all into it. So Charley walks in on him and she's kind of like ear hustling and tripping, like, oh my God, he's really getting wrapped up in this foolishness. And she says something to him and he's like, I'm tired of this. What are we supposed to do? We can't just sit around. We can't fight this with love, and he's on this militant kick. And she's trying to talk reason to him and let him know that she's just as upset and as hurt as he is, but there's a way that they have to go about getting through this, right? Mike ain't trying to hear that. He ain't trying to hear it. Next, they go back to the crib with Auntie Vi, Hollywood, and Prosper. Now, what I don't understand is why Hollywood placed a call to overly emotional Ralph Angel. And I love Ralph Angel down, but he's hella emotional. It don't take much for Ralph Angel to break down and cry. And I'm thinking like, they on their honeymoon, Hollywood. But then I gotta give Hollywood a pass because he just lost his mama as a result of this pandemic. So he's distraught. He ain't thinking straight. But he calls Ralph Angel and puts him on game like, have you looked at the TV? You see what's on every channel? So then Ralph Angel's at the hotel with Darla. They newly married. I mean, they've been having blissful romance and just enjoying one another. And Hollywood gives him this call. And of course, Ralph Angel, he sits down and he starts taking it in, and it don't take much for his eyes to well up. And he's sitting there crying. He's crying because, I mean, can y'all imagine how emasculating this is for, in particularly, a black man? Hey, Miss Carter, how you doing? Thank you for popping in. Listen, because I was gonna talk to the sky. Normally I do this in an uploaded fashion, but it's all good. It's gonna upload after the fact, honey. Let me get back though. I'm recapping my notes and giving my commentary on Queen Sugar season 5, episode 6. Tonight's episode just aired. But thank you, honey, for coming in. I appreciate you. And thank y'all up in the bushes. Y'all can feel free to drop down. I ain't gonna bite you. So again, Ralph Angel and Darla, they got married, right? He proposed last week. Hey, Miss Full Roller. Look, I need to quit looking at that because then I get all distracted. Thank you for being here. Hollywood done called and put this craziness in Ralph Angel's head. And y'all know Ralph Angel can be overly emotional with his chocolate self, okay? So he starts to crying and getting emotional about the situation because, of course, it hurt us all when we seen what happened with George Floyd. I don't think we'll ever be able to get that image out of our heads. So I love what they are doing this season in the way they are mirroring what is really going on in the world today and putting it in chronological order and including it in these episodes. I love what they're doing there. Okay. But I don't think he should have called them while they were on their honeymoon. But it is what it is. Hey, Patricia Crankfield. Thank you for coming in. Welcome. I am recapping this episode of Queen Sugar, so it won't be long, y'all. I'm just giving y'all the gist and the highlights on what took place in tonight's episode, and then I am going to come through with my final thoughts on how it went. So, of course, we go back to the diner actually, and we see that Hollywood, Auntie Vi, and Mr. Prosper are all at the diner. And Hollywood is up on a ladder. He is boarding up the windows in preparation for the riots. Because during this time last year, when that situation took place with George Floyd, rioters and protesters took flight in practically every city in the US of A. Okay. And so he was trying to use forethought and plan ahead so that their little business wouldn't get ruined in the midst of that. So he's boarding up the windows, concerned, and Vi's concerned that he's over exaggerating. In fact, she tells him that he needs to get over to the boy spot. She would much rather he go on over to the boy spot and board up over there instead of, being there at her restaurant. Okay. But Hollywood then tells her, he ain't even worried about that place. He's over it. Now, remember, he was so passionate about creating this gentleman's spot, just a place for the guys to kind of hang out and be free. She looks like, okay, something's not right. And it was that same look she had when she saw him getting all into the news coverage when they were reporting the incident with what happened to George Floyd. In the first place, she's starting to notice a change, a shift. Hollywood has always been so gentle and so kind and so loving. But I think the fact that he just lost his mother as a result of this pandemic, now this situation with George Floyd, they've been having to quarantine. Everybody's life is being affected, and I think it's taking a toll on Hollywood. It's causing him to harden his heart, really. And Auntie Vi is catching on. She's paying attention to it, and she's noticing this change in her man. This is just what I observed. So while he's doing that, he asked her to go and hand him like some hammers or nails or something. And she was like, "Where? In this toolbox?" And she goes to grab the toolbox, and he jumps down off the ladder like, "No, no, no, no." But before he could get down, she uncovers the rag off the top of the toolbox and sees that he got a pistol in there. So she's immediately taken back because she's one of them women that is totally against firearms. And apparently they had this discussion prior to them getting married. He knows that she's against it. So they have this conversation, and she's like, "What is that? And why do you have it?" And of course he's like, "I'm a man. Do you see what's going on the TV? I got to protect my family." So they have this whole heated conversation. She's all traumatized again because she wants nothing to do with the gun. She doesn't want it at their home, nothing. Now, back at Nova's house, Courtney, who's Calvin's daughter, and Calvin and Nova, they're sitting down to eat. His daughter has prepared some food, and they're getting ready to have dinner. Again, this is an interesting dynamic because they're an interracial couple. The daughter has been sent home from college because of the pandemic. They're all being forced to quarantine. Now, her and Nova hit it off really well last week, so things are going well there. But she's cooking, she's preparing something for them to eat. And as they're sitting down eating, Nova's not even really eating. She's paying attention to the TV like she is engulfed. We have to remember that Nova is the woke sister. She's all into the community. She does she drops off food to the elderly. She does a lot of stuff in the community. Her business serves the community. So she's really involved in this, and we have to keep in mind that Calvin is an ex New Orleans police officer. So he's trying to have conversation with her over dinner, like, we can tape this and watch this. And she's like, are you kidding me? I have to be there. And he's trying to persuade her not to go to the protest because we all know the protests got really violent around the George Floyd situation. They all started off with good intentions, but they got really messy. So he's trying to persuade her. But there's a shift taking place with their relationship. She's coming at him like, you're a white man, you will never know my struggles, more so than you're my man and I know you just looking out for me. So it's interesting. Okay. She blows him off. And then we go back to Charley's house. Micah is getting ready to head out. He got his Black Lives. No, matter of fact, I'm jumping ahead. We then see Darla and Ralph Angel. They're on the road. I guess they're heading back home from their honeymoon. Okay, they've like pulled over at a gas station. They're getting some gas. And they're still being real lovey-dovey, real romantical, right? They're chatting outside of the gas station while he's pumping gas. And this young white guy comes up and he just out of nowhere, as they're being lovey-dovey and romantic, he butts into their conversation and he starts talking about Black Lives Matter. Psh, what if I was to say white lives matter? And he just starts picking with them. And Ralph Angel kind of blows it off. You know, he don't want no trouble. But the guy insists. And Darla, knowing that Ralph Angel is an ex-con, he done turned his life around. They're newly married. They got a young child at home. She's being a woman about the situation. She's trying to usher him to just walk away. And Ralph Angel's feeling some type of way after seeing that man getting the life snuffed up out of him with that man kneeling on his neck. So he's kind of ready for the heat. So he's kind of entertaining the man. And the man just goes on and on picking with him like, white lives matter too. And Ralph Angel kind of said a few words to him and was like, boy, you don't want this smoke. If you knew it was good for you, finish pumping that gas and keep it moving. So the boy must have thought twice about it because he sure enough finished pumping his gas, got on in his truck, and he kept it moving. Okay? Thank the Lord, because I was like, no, Ralph Angel, you just got married. We don't want to see you get hurt. Okay, please. It's already enough. It's enough going on. But I digress. So now we are back at Charley's. And Micah comes downstairs. And like I said, y'all, I don't know what is going on with Micah, but I do. Because y'all have to understand, I'm a mother of two young men. Let me think. My oldest son just turned 29, and my middle son just turned 24. Ain't that a shame? I be forgetting. But anyway, I said all that to say this. I know the plight of a young black man who has had interaction and engagement with the police. And no, I'm not saying I have children who are involved with law enforcement or a criminal or anything like that. But What I'm saying is, I can speak to the experience of that constant fear of when my sons leave my presence, I'm worried and I'm concerned and I'm nervous and I'm praying because so many young black men have been dying in these streets. And not all the time is it at the hands of their peers. Oftentimes, more so than not, it's at the hands of police. So it's just an interesting dynamic. So I can understand and relate to Charley. Dang it, I wish I had a picture with Charley and Micah. Let me see. I don't. But I do have one of Charley and Mr. Prosper. So I'm going to put that up there for y'all. I can definitely identify with Charley in this instance. She don't want him to go. She don't want him to go. She walks in on him and he's sitting down in the living room and he's looking at this big protest and they're talking about how the police are vamping up patrol. They're calling in out, more patrol from the outskirts to come in and help out. And she's like, Micah, please tell me you're not planning on going to that protest. Again, he's home from college as well. And she's like, he's telling her, Mom, of course I'm going. I helped plan this protest. I've got to do something. I'm not just gonna sit by. I'm tired of this. We have to take a stand. So she's nervous. She's trying to talk him out of it, convince him it's not safe. And Mike ain't trying to hear that. He is not trying to hear it. So he goes upstairs. After a while, she tries to reiterate to him that she is just as disappointed and hurt and upset and angry as he is, but these protests are very dangerous. And we have to remember now that Charley is on the city council. So she's not only thinking of this from a mother's standpoint, but she's looking at it from her standpoint as her role in the city council. She knows that if they get unruly or too rowdy, the police are going to move in with force. Okay. And who wants their son to be involved in that? Nobody. So she tries to convince him, but he is not trying to hear all that. He's determined to go. So he goes upstairs. He comes back down. He's got on his, I can't remember what the t-shirt said. It didn't say Black Lives Matter, but it was something, one of those taglines that we were seeing plastered all over the news last year around this time when that situation took place. Again, tonight's episode is titled May 27th, 2020. And I believe that's critical because that's around the time when this incident occurred in real time, y'all. So he comes back down. She asks him, so, you're really going? And he's like, yeah. And they kind of stand there and they talk and they hug. And then just out of nowhere, Charley asks him, you got another one of those? And it's like they had this shift where there was all this contention and anger. It was like this acceptance. She was finally accepting him and seeing him as a young man and not just her little boy. And it was like taking a stand and joining him in solidarity to go and be there with him at this protest. So, y'all, in true Queen Sugar fashion, this was the cliffhanger. This is where they left us hanging. This is where tonight's episode went off with us seeing Charley and Micah preparing to go to the protest together. So we will have to see what happens on next week's episode. Now, in the back of my mind, I was like, I ain't mad at you, Charley. I would want to be there too, because you can't stop him from going. So he going, so you might as well go with him. At least then you can keep your eyes on him, and make sure he's safe. You can still be a helicopter mom, but also be there to support him because he feels very vehemently that he must go do something. So again, in recapping, the episode started off with everything high and happy. They were still celebrating. The newlywed couple, Ralph Angel and Darla, got married. Of course, the situation took place with George Floyd, and it kind of affected everyone in unique individual ways. Um, Micah more so because he had that incident with the police a few years back while he was still in high school. That officer put the gun in his face and everything. And, we have to remember Micah comes from influence. Before Charley and Davis separated, his father was an NBA player. His mom, a mega businesswoman. They moved back here to New Orleans once her father got sick and everything, and they've been living there ever since he died. So he's kind of had to adjust to the whole suburban lifestyle. And in doing so, he's kind of found new friends where before he was going to private schools, he hung out with a whole different social class of people. Now he's hanging with the boys from the hood. Not necessarily the boys on the corner, but the boys in the hood. They're all college bound, but they're also on their social justice kick. They're young men. They're tired of seeing their peers getting murdered. They want to take a stand. They want their voices to be heard, and they're fighting for justice. They're fighting for justice. So I think he's at a point in time where he feels accepted. He feels like he's in a leadership role. He wants to make a difference, and he's kind of linked up with some militant young men. So this is going to be interesting to really see what happens with young Micah. Of course, we see that Hollywood is still going through a little bit of instability, but that's to be expected. His mother just suddenly died out of nowhere as a result of complications from the pandemic. Mr. Prosper is going crazy because he can't really do what he's used to doing. And at this time, they know very little about the whole virus. What they do know is that it affects older people and people of color and people with underlying health conditions. And Mr. Prosper fits all three of those narratives. So they brung him to the house to stay with Aunt Vi in Hollywood. And, they're just trying to make the most of this thing and kind of keep him socially engaged with others so that he doesn't go stone crazy. Of course, Nova and Calvin's situation is going to be very interesting, and I'll be praying for them. I honestly don't know how they get through this because they definitely love each other, but something like this is going to definitely throw a wrench in their situation because at the end of the day, she's a black woman, he's a white man, she's a woke sister, and he's ex-police. So I don't know, y'all. That's like oil and water. That's just my opinion. That's my thought. Now, Ralph Angel and Darla, I think they're going to be all right. I think they'll be all right. I really do. It's Micah that I'm concerned about. But overall, that was tonight's episode in a nutshell, y'all. I hope that you guys enjoyed the recap. I'm looking forward to seeing what next week brings. They are doing an excellent job, like I said, chronicling real time events because, again, while they were shooting this season, is when this whole virus broke out in real time. So they had no other choice but to write it into the script. So we're seeing it play out that way, and they're actually doing an excellent job with, the parallels to what's going on and what they're showing. Let me see what you say, Miss Full Roller. I think I just missed your comment. I saw it go up. Okay, there you go. Miss Full Roller said, yes, it will definitely be a test for Nova and Calvin. Nova, I don't think will ever subdue her authenticity for anyone. Right. Absolutely. Thank you for still being here, Carters. I appreciate y'all sticking around. I know it can be dry sometimes listening to a recap or a review, but I appreciate y'all for being here. We got our diehard Queen Sugar lovers, and some of y'all just here just because you support me. You don't even watch the show, and I really, really appreciate y'all. I thank you guys for that. But yeah, Miss Full Roller, I am in agreement. I just think it's going to be so difficult because I know that they love each other. I know that they love each other. I mean, she went on a rant with him. I left that out too, where she was like, "You don't feel bad? You don't feel ashamed?" Then we got this idiot in the Oval. I mean, they even wrote 45 into the episode, y'all. They clowned 45 talking about how, he didn't care about the situation with George Floyd. So that's what I'm saying. The writing on this season has been phenomenal. It has been phenomenal. But all around hurtful situations, But yeah, other than that, I think it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out. Tonight was a really good episode. And guess what? I've been going to sleep early this week, so I didn't fall asleep. I actually caught the episode in its entirety because I've been being a little bit raggedy and giving y'all just a piece of a review because I done fell asleep or missed it or something crazy. So tonight was a full watch. Now I'm going to go to sleep after I take my twist out. Oh, thank you, Patricia. Patricia says, I have not watched the show in a year. Yes, I'm here just to support you. Thank you so much, Patricia. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. And you are wonderful because you pretty much watch almost every video that I put up and always leave me a wonderful comment. So I really appreciate that. Thank you for being here. So yeah, y'all, you've only seen the show on clips. It is so good this year. It is so good this year, Miss Full Roller. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Patricia. So yeah, y'all, that was it in a nutshell. I am not going to keep you. I need to go to sleep because I have a meeting first thing in the morning at work. My little weekly rounding with my department. So I am going to call it a night. I am getting ready to go in here and untwist these twists. I just shampooed my hair last night. Trying to go for another week of rocking my natural. I'm trying like crazy to not put a wig on. I try to do that, and usually I only do it for a couple of days, but I'm actually going on second week of just letting the hair breathe. It's grown out quite a bit, gotten way more gray in the top, but hey, it is what it is, right? My silver halo, my silver crown coming on in there. So yeah, y'all, I'm Pandy of Pandy's Hair Candy and More. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. You all stay safe, stay blessed, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming through and kicking it with your girl. I hope that you guys enjoyed yourself. And if you have not already, don't forget to blow dry on my like button. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, what are you waiting for? It is free 99 after all. Make sure you double tap on that notification bell so that you are notified each and every time I go live over here and when new content is added to the channel. Until next time, stay safe, everybody. Stay encouraged. And I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.